Certainly drive.
Yeah. There's on the phone with my husband, I was like, I have to go, I'm driving over the hill, he's like, what does that have to do with anything? I was like, I can't talk to you and deal with the snow. I just need to think about the
Hey, I
road.
was just gonna talk about that too.
Oh, perfect timing.
Hands-free device.
My your intended audience of that lesson.
Possibly.
I'm guilty as charged.
We're all the intended audience.
So Craig's online.
Greg Carroll, that's it, in my title for it.
Let's each.
Rhonda. We did Kim there, that was-
She will be here. Kim,
Just
Aaron,
wanted to
yeah,
confirm
Dave
for
will be
Kirk.
late.
Yes.
Harley. She sometimes joins late because of class, and maybe Gail. Usually at 5 we can start. For those online, we're just waiting for 2 more members to join before we start.
So that was all out of the whole thing, that probably goes from actually anything that was. Wire rack out of an air fryer. Well, I grabbed it. The glove hand. And then I went over. I don't know what's thinking.
It's the wing, right in.
So we're waiting for
4
form.
and 5.
So for everyone online, we're just waiting for one more member to join so that we have quorum. Thanks for your patience. Confirm for me this evening.
Yeah, Kim. Gail accepted the invite. Dave will be late. Carly is not informed, but she's planning to be here at some point. So. Kim or Gail. You already asked that right now. Do you want me to text?
Sure.
There's camera. There's just- Hey, okay.
Is she on? Chair, we are ready.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'd like to call to order this Mountain Line Transit Advisory Committee meeting at 10:05. Rhonda, you please do roll call.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the TAC, Coconino County, Kim Musselman.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Coconino County Citizen Representative Carol Covington.
Also present.
Thank you. City of Flagstaff, Greg Clifton.
Present.
Thank you. City of Flagstaff Citizen Representative Michelle James is excused. Metro Plan Dave Wessel will be late. NAU Aaron Stamm.
Here.
Thank you. Our NAU student Carly Vandermeesh does plan to join us at some point. CCC Kurt Stull.
Here.
And Economic Development Representative Gail Jackson also is planning to join us. We have members of staff online on Zoom and in the room, and we have our attorney Cameron Stanley on Zoom.
Morning.
Morning. And we are expecting one guest, Michelle McNulty from the City of Flagstaff, a little bit later in the meeting. So I'll turn it back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is safety minutes. Sam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Transit Advisory Committee. So April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month, and distracted driving continues to be a major road safety concern, contributing to thousands of accidents and fatalities each year. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, distracted driving claimed the lives of over 3,000 people in the United States in 2022 alone. This alarming statistic underscores the importance of promoting safer driving habits. Some common forms of distracted driving include cell phone use, eating and drinking, adjusting your entertainment or navigational dials or knobs, and conversing with passengers, which can take your mental focus away from driving. To mitigate these distracted driving risks, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration encourages drivers to only use hands-free device and only for essential communication. Pull over to a safe location when needing to eat or perform any task which takes your focus away from driving. Designate a passenger to handle navigation or entertainment use, and keep your hands on the wheel, your eyes on the road, and your mind on the task of driving. By adopting these practices, motorists can contribute to safer roads and prevent unnecessary accidents. Thank you and welcome to the April Transit Advisory Committee meeting.
Thank you, Sam. Next is milestone anniversaries, Heather.
Good morning, members of the Transit Advisory Committee and Chair Stull. We have one milestone anniversary to share with you today. I'm happy to celebrate Christian's first anniversary here at Mountain Line and share remarks from his supervisor. Christian has been our bus ambassador. That is somebody we use in the field to help our drivers and staff and passengers throughout their travel experience. He has been serving in that role for a year. He took that role, we actually hired him as a transit bus operator trainee, and then learned that he had had his driver's license for such a short amount of time, he was not eligible to obtain a CDL. So he moved into this bus ambassador position while he earned that driving experience that allowed him to move into a CDL position. I was shared this example when he had only been with us for a couple of months. A confused and elderly woman got off of our Route 10 and told us that she thought it was the bus that would take her home to Payson. She had come to Flagstaff the day before and she could not remember how to get home. Christian took time to work with her and help her figure out her insurance coverage for medical transportation, and then he went about ordering a car for her. This is an example of the intelligence and compassion that Christian brings to Mountain Line. He did just join our driver training program and has his CDL permit now, and we are very excited to see him join our team of operators. And that's what I have for milestones today.
Thank you. Next item is call to the public, and we have nobody online or in the room. We'll go on from that one. Next is the approval of TAC minutes for the March meeting. Do we have any comments, questions, or corrections for the minutes for March? Hearing none, I will ask for someone to make a motion to approve.
Hi, this is Erin. I make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Hi, this is Kim. I second.
Okay, any comments before we do a vote? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes passed unanimously. Next, we have the review of the draft agenda for the board. We have a consent agenda item. It's the Metro Plan and Mountain Lion Coordinate Public Transit Human Service Transportation Plan. Does anybody have any questions? So it's not a presentation for this item, but wanted to see if there was any questions from our TAC members. Hearing none, we will move on. Next is our discussion items. The very first one is July 2025 service changes, and Jackie has that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the TAC. Use this one.
I need to click on the slide. Yeah.
So we came to you 2 months ago, came to the board to open a public comment period for proposed service changes for this August, which we keep saying August, but it's technically July. It'll be July 27th. So I need to change my my vernacular on that one. But we will be going back to the board this month to ask them to close that public comment period and approve the proposed service changes. So today I just want to go through the comments that we have received about these service changes. As a reminder, we did a press release, we did stops, signage all of our stops. We did a mailer to a postcard to people who live in impacted areas. And then we also did social media posts. So we had quite a bit of outreach, and we actually had quite a bit of feedback on the proposed service changes. So I'll go through them and kind of just do a little recap of the feedback that we received. The first one is related to Route 2. This is the one that took me the longest to describe in the last meeting, so I'm not going to go into all of it, but it has to do with the deviation that we do to Gemini Road and the proposal that we continue doing it in the mall-bound direction, so eastbound, permanently. So every time we go through on Route 2, we will go off of Forest or Cedar, whatever you call it there, go through Gemini, stop at that stop by basis, and then come out and hit stop 7, right by Buffalo Park. That we would always do that every single run, but then we would never do it in the other direction. The reason behind that is because of the road network up on the mesa and having to double back on ourselves in a very transit inefficient way to be able to make a left-hand turn at Gemini, which is where there is a light. You cannot make a left-hand turn at Pine Cliff, which is the lower portion of that. We're in the middle of a feasibility study to see if there is a solution, a creative solution to make that left-hand turn off of the mesa, but we don't have that yet. And so for efficiency's sake and ridership, the sake of our ridership, we are proposing this change. This is actually the only proposed service change where we received what I would call constructive feedback. Everything else was spoiler alert, very positive. We had 2 parents, to be determined, I actually think it was a husband and wife, who made comments about how this is going to impact their students' ability to ride the bus in the afternoon. I talked through this a lot with our service planning team, and the closest bus stops to to bases that we serve with our regular Route 2 service. Sorry, did I go?
No, it's me, I was gonna be like, yeah,
It's okay.
sorry.
Fiddling with it, so I want to make sure I didn't. Are down there, stops 25 and 6 in the blue at Turquoise and Forest, and those are just over a little more than a half-mile walk, which is feasible, not ideal. It's not how we prefer to provide service, but it is feasible. And with the increase in ridership we've had on Route 2, because Route 2 goes by nearly every single school that we are now serving with FUSD, with the partnership we have with FUSD. It goes by Fly High, it goes by Cocoa, it goes by MEMS. When we do this deviation and we get so far behind, it then impacts those students' abilities to make their connections, and they're missing connections at the mall and the downtown connection center, as are our regular riders who are using it for daily life. So our recommendation is to move forward with this service change. And me or someone else on our team will reach out to those couple of parents or husband and wife who commented to talk through things and talk about alternative options for their students. Any questions? This is kind of the most difficult one, so I just want to stop and see if there's any questions on that one.
Any questions, for Jackie?
All right, thank you. Moving forward, we did not receive any public comments on in your packet you received from Rhonda. There was a separate attachment that did have a summary of all of the comments that we received. So this has to do with the new roundabout on Beulah and closing a couple of stops on Milton to shift our service over to Beulah. Did not receive any comments on that one, so our recommendation is to continue moving forward. We actually did some outreach on those stops that we're going to close prior to this process. Route 5, moving to have a 30-minute weekday service, received a resounding approval from our friends who live along the Route 5 corridor. We received a ton of positive comments about this one, to the best of my knowledge. Did not receive any negative ones about the increase in bus service in a neighborhood. And then, people wanting later night service as well for in that corridor as well. So that one, we are recommending that we move forward. And as a reminder, that one is made possible by Proposition 488. And I apologize. I need to do a follow-up with our team, and I will do this before the board meeting. I just realized that I did not have the chance to do it before this meeting. We had originally proposed to move this stop on Route 7, the black one in 16, down just a little bit to be out of the kind of direct exit from the roundabout. But our team had some subsequent conversations with the city of Flagstaff about the roundabout design, and I believe that we were considering not moving the stop because of we deemed it would be safe for us to continue stopping in the same place where we are. While there are many benefits to moving that stop closer to the crosswalk, there's a lot of work to be done on 4th Street as far as transit and access and things go. And our preference is not to make any sweeping changes right now ahead of trying to do, Metro Plan's doing a bunch of work in this corridor. We intend to do some work in this corridor from an operational assessment standpoint. So our preference would be to not make changes if we don't have to, because we don't want to change something and then change it back down the road if that's what it ultimately recommends. So I apologize, I don't have that firmed up, but I will make sure I have that firmed up before the board meeting. And then Route 8 is our most exciting one. This is the extension of an existing route out West Route 66 to the Presidio neighborhood. And this one also received overwhelmingly positive comments. People who have not had access to transit for forever are very excited to have that. It did receive some additional comments, and if I use this, can the people online
Yes.
see it? Okay. So, oops, you have to keep holding. Okay, thank you. So right now we are, because this is like not intuitive, sorry. We are proposing to use the roundabout and just having this one stop near the Presidio neighborhood. Obviously, there is a ton of development happening kind of where I don't know if the people online can see my, arrow, but where, the Live Sky cottages, I think, around, there's a bunch of other things happening. And this road network continues, it makes a U back to West Route 66. Our long-term plan is to serve that entire U horseshoe shape. So that's why we only have that stop on this on the one side of the road at Patio del Presidio, because we intend on continuing on and finishing that U to better serve the rest of that area. And we did receive a good amount of comments asking us to do just that, which I actually love. A lot of city employees who work at the Public Works Yard, which is just beyond here, who would love to use transit to get to work, which I thought was amazing, and would love a stop closer to them. So that is in our phase 2 of this of our Route 8 extension. So in phase 2, we would. It decided it doesn't work anymore. The top button. Oh, I'm pushing the wrong button, you mean? Thanks. In phase 2, sorry, we would eliminate this little dip that we do here. It is served by other routes. It is served by Route 10. And we would do the bigger loop around here would be the intention. The reason we're not doing this right away is because, as you know, West Route 66 is, there are very few sidewalks, there are no crosswalks, there are high speeds of traffic. The city and Metro Plan are in the middle of a corridor study in this area. This is also an ADOT is also an ADOT road. But right now, with ADOT, we have agreed that we will do a very intensive safety campaign to encourage people to not cross West Route 66 to get the bus. Right now, that's feasible. To go around, if you basically ride around, it's going to add 5 minutes, 6 minutes-ish to your trip. If we do that bigger loop, it would add a much more significant amount of time to people's trips, and we believe that people would no longer be incentivized to make the safe choice, and we would see far more people running across West Route 66, which is not our intention. So we do not intend on completing phase 2 of that until there are improvements to West Route 66 that make it safer for pedestrians to access both sides of the street. So, but outside of that, for July of 2025, overwhelmingly positive feedback to bring the service out to this area. So we are recommending that service change to move forward. And that is all that I have. So we will ask the board to close that public comment period and then vote to approve the service changes. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
But for everyone, it was confirmed that they can see the highlight when you use the pointer.
Oh,
So
good.
for everyone who wants to use that highlighter in our new clicker, everyone online can see when those items are highlighted.
It's backwards when you're standing up there, so my hand was one to move in different directions.
Carol had a comment that benefit from a verbal description as a pointer wasn't really working as a.
Okay. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you. Next item, FY 26 capital budget. Josh.
Good morning, everyone. We're gonna look forward to the fiscal year 2026 capital budget. Today is like the third in the series, looking forward to 2026. And will eventually in June, hopefully approve our budget for next year. So we have a capital improvement plan of $46 million. That we're looking at. There's a group of people that we sit down and identify and evaluate all of our needs and what funding we have, resources we have available to us, and the capacity and feasibility of implementing the items. And that's how we're coming up with the list we're gonna talk about today. I'll say that of the $46 million for the overall, all of the projects, we in fiscal year 2025 currently, we have already budgeted $38 million of those. So these are carrying forward into the next year. They are things that are underway, and they're just, they haven't finished yet, so we're continuing on with them. The biggest of those, the DCC though, which is basically done. Will be done this the end of this year, so that is actually not part of that, but okay. So we're gonna move into first project is first and last mile. So this is sidewalk and road crossings, bikeways that are throughout the city that are adjacent to transit areas, transit network. This is actually a grant that Mountain Line has. The city is leading the project and helping identify where these projects are located. I think we're starting construction this year with Huntington corridor. There will be sidewalks in that area. So this has been sitting for a few years, percolating and deciding where we're gonna go with that. But I think the construction will actually be starting in 2026, fiscal year 2026. And I'll say that the 20% city match for this is not coming out of transit funds. Mountain Line's transit funds is coming, the city is actually providing that out of their own capital funds. So this is in our budget, but it is not part of our budget necessarily. Downtown Connection Center. So as I said, we're the building on the left there under construction that is finishing up. So now we're moving forward to look at the whole rest of the site to the east. And there's a budget for $3.3 million for that. So we have to basically, I'm not gonna do a good job explaining this, but we have to, all of our buses come in and park wherever their stations for to come and go on their routes. So all that area will be moved closer to the building, I guess. Maybe not necessarily close, that much closer, but for a time until Rio de Flag drainage and all that infrastructure type things are completed at some time in the future by the city, maybe 5 years, some period of time. But Mountain Line, our lease of this area is the whole property. So we have to kind of get out of the way for that to take place. So this budget here is for interim construction project to have some place for buses to park in the meantime. And it will be final design of what will happen after that redefining. Construction takes place. We have Caspar Maintenance Facility, which is the building that we're sitting in right now, some of us. The budget is 28 million. The part of this building will be redeveloped into a much more accommodating maintenance facility compared to the one that we have right now, where the buses don't quite fit in the building. So it'll be more appropriate for a modern maintenance facility. The budget, I said, is 28 million. There is a federal, we have federal grants for that. We applied for an Arizona Smart Fund grant, which is state will provide part of our local match required for that. So our local match will not be $5 million. It'll be $3.5 million. So that'll be that is helpful. We actually just found I think is Kate talking about it?
It's in the current event report coming later this
Yeah.
meeting. Okay,
It's coming up. Okay, vehicles. So we, this is actually not a great picture because we're not procuring electric buses at the moment. But we are placing orders for replacement buses. Some of our buses are reaching the end of their useful life. And so we are replacing 4 of them with hybrid buses. And that's pretty straightforward. We're gonna get into like a whole bunch of different types of bus stops here. So annually, we can make a selection of bus stops that is kind of a prioritized list of bus stops that need maintenance or replacement or refurbishment. They're just sitting outside all the time. They're exposed to the elements, so they need to be repainted. They need to be updated. Sometimes the glass might be broken. We're replacing those with metal screens now. So anyway, this part of budget, 165,000, which is locally funded, is a selection of bus stops around town that will be overhauled and spruced up. This is the partially opened Beulah and University extension. You can see the roundabout up in the right corner. And then you can see, I guess, we have these nice bus only lanes. So we're gonna relocate some of our bus stops along here to there and there. There's pads for them. So those will be, I guess they're not really new bus stops. They're relocated from Milton. So that there's a small budget for that. Jackie talked about our Route 8 extension. All these stops on the west side of this map here. Those are new bus stops along that new service area. This is just an example photo, but this, we try to, if there's new development coming in, those developers have to put their own infrastructure in, sidewalks around their buildings and things like that. So where we can, we sometimes will ask them to pour a little extra concrete and we'll get a pad for a bus stop. And so there are 2 of those this year, I believe. And we will provide the shelter and other bus stop amenities as an upgrade for a stop that was already near that property that's being developed. So that's that. This is just a map of bus stops all over town that actually the board kind of developed a list of places that they would like to see or that need updating. So this, we have asked for a congressionally directed spending request. It's or an earmark if you want to shorten that. This it's not going to be all of those things that are prioritized on there, but that this, if we are to get this grant, then we will attack some of these to upgrade them to a state of good repair. Maybe accessibility improvements. I believe there's a crosswalk at some point on one of these, I'm not sure where. And then there's maybe some fill-in bus stops where there's not currently a full bus stop or things like that. So it's just general bus stop upgrades around town. And then the last thing that we have in our capital is administrative projects and IT. These are kind of possibly combination hardware, software type things. And we don't currently have any federal grants to pay for these. We may get federal grants at some point. If they're available, but otherwise these will be locally funded. We do need to replace our fare collection provider with a more modern system. We have various planning studies that take place around town. Usually in coordination with the city or metro plan. And then we have need for a capital asset and inventory management solution. So we can more appropriately track all of our items and life cycle of all of our assets and that sort of. So that is my very brief $46 million capital budget. If anybody has any questions about specifics, I'd be happy to entertain.
Members, any questions for Josh? Thank you, Josh. Next item is Mountain Express performance report.
Thank you, Chair, members of the TAC. Here to talk about Mountain Express. We finished the service in February, the last Sunday in February. So this is just a wrap-up report of the season overall. So we had service every day during the holiday break, December 26th through, I believe, January 2nd, but whenever FUSD went back to school. And then every weekend, Saturday and Sunday in January and February. We had 30-minute frequency this year on every single day that we operated. It was free to ride for any passenger, and the Arizona Snow Bowl paid the actual cost associated with the routes. And there was 25 service days this year. Nice. So performance. Mountain Express was created to relieve congestion on US 180 and continues to achieve that goal. And so if every bus rider had driven a car instead just this season alone, we'd expect about 99 more cars on US 180 for each of the 25 days in service. That's assuming 2 people per car even, which may be generous. And then that means a savings of 28 metric tons from entering FlagStep's air, equal to removing 7 cars for 1 year. So there's definitely an impact on the roadway itself and then in the FlagStep air from the surface. And so here's our performance year over year. Our first year of service was 2015-16 winter. You can see pretty dismal ridership on that first year, and then it's really fluctuated year over year. The yellow line is total snowfall in inches. So definitely we have ridership patterns that mimic the weather that's happening. So ridership is impacted by weather patterns. Like I said, our highest ridership and the most snow was in February, followed by January and holiday break. So ridership, people are coming for the snow. There's no snow, really not as attractive. Also, the frequency of service in our 2 highest ridership years, shown here at 2018 and 19 season, and then the 19-20 season, the big blue bars. We provided 20-minute frequency. This year we're operating 30-minute frequency, and we've been operating that since the 2020-21 season. So really kind of corresponding with some of that drop in ridership. So again, the more often the bus is coming, the easier it is to choose transit to go up to the hill. And conversely, the less frequent, the less attractive it is. And we see that in ridership patterns. Marketing is also a huge impact on ridership. So again, the really big 2018-19 season, Snowball partnered with local businesses on Humphrey Street to post marquee advertising Mountain Express. That was extremely successful. As people are just crawling up that road, they're thinking, hey, there's an alternative. That sounds amazing. We have not seen that since. That would be an awesome thing to have back. But we definitely would look to Snowball partners on that item. And let's see. I also want to point out boardings. So I didn't include a map here, but we have boardings at the Downtown Connection Center and then the Flagstaff High School. Those are both park and ride opportunities. The Flagstaff High School park and ride is free. DCC is paid parking, obviously, we all know that. It's great to see a lot of park and ride use. We had about equal number of boardings between the Downtown Connection and the Flagstaff High School park and ride. Which is great. That's a huge success. We want to see people boarding in town and not driving all the way up to the mountain. So that's great. And I thought I had one more slide, but I do not. And just to summarize, we're looking forward to the next season. We recognize the need for a follow-up meeting on funding strategies, and we will schedule that with the county, city, and Snowball. And I welcome any questions you might have.
Any questions for Busy? Thank you on that one. I should have mentioned earlier that under action items, agenda item 4 and 5 are being switched. And so we are going to cover item number 5 now.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Michelle McNulty from the City of Flagstaff. Planning Director is your title, is that right? And she'll be here talking about the general last cap, and then I'll step in for the transit component. Okay, so thank you.
And then just hit this for you got it. And this one is a little circle if you want to highlight anything. Perfect.
Okay, I wish I had something to highlight because this is a really cool feature. So I'm Michelle McNulty, I'm the planning director for the City of Flagstaff. We have been working, so the planning has teamed with housing, sustainability, engineering, and mountain lion through a grant from Metro Plan to work on the land availability, site suitability study and code analysis project that we refer to as the last cap. In short, it was just the last part of this was just identifying all the land that we have left for development and what are the barriers to achieving key climate neutrality and housing goals, as well as doing a code analysis portion to make sure that all of the codes that touch development really are working towards also achieving those goals.
The big one.
Okay, I'm sorry that was in perfect. So the goals that are really kind of guiding this are the 10-year housing plans aim to reduce affordable housing needs through our community by over half over the next 10 years. Through both impact of at least 6,000 low to moderate income Flagstaff residents through a combination of unit creation or subsidy provisions, as well as creating or preserving 7,976 housing units by 2031, with a minimum of 10% of those being affordable. And hope the aim of this is to increase the overall supply of both market rate, workforce, and affordable housing to be occupied by local residents. The carbon neutrality plan has 3 primary goals, which are to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030 through a 44% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, to prepare Flagstaff's community systems and resources to be more resilient to climate change and impacts, and then also to address climate change in a manner that prioritizes those most impacted and ensures the costs and benefits of climate adaptation and mitigation are equitably distributed. And that's why we really wanted to focus the partnership with engineering and transit, knowing that those are some of the key components to reducing these emissions. So we have completed the land availability suitability study. We've also did a large code diagnostic report. That diagnostic report looked at, as I said, every development code that touches a development project, engineering standards, zoning code, building codes. And that is complete. One of the key barriers as far as transit is related is that we don't really require transit. And so that's where this partnership has really been important as we move on to the next phase, which is where we're at as code concepts to really address those highest priority barriers. It says code concepts, and at the time we thought we would actually be delivering a lot of proposed code changes. But really, we found that we have a lot of community conversation to have to inform what direction we move code. So right now we are kind of just getting out to a lot of different interested stakeholder groups and our design and development communities to really get feedback on where they want us to take this so that we can come back with more of those code concepts. So really this presentation is just to let you know that we're doing this work and to provide resources on where you can learn more about this. So we do have a project website. We have that final land availability suitability report there, as well as the diagnostic report. And then we have the draft code concepts. I do want to say that the draft code concepts report is just focused on zoning code. But at the same time, building safety is working with sustainability, if looking at the new building codes to adopt, including potentially looking at green building codes as well as other amendments. Our engineering group is looking at engineering standards, so they're also working on making those changes. So we have a lot happening that are kind of wrapped up into this whole entire project. We will be doing another council work session on May 6th, just to give them various similar update, kind of what the feedback we've received so far. And then I erroneously keep telling everybody that this town hall is June 16th, but it's going to be June 14th. But we do want to open up a full day of community conversation about this project and the different decision points that we really need to have discussions with a lot of different groups to inform where we move forward in our code concepts. So public outreach is occurring throughout this whole entire process. And right now we're really trying to resolve outstanding decision point questions on those code concepts. Again, if you go and look at the different available resources, you'll learn more about that. And if this group decides that you would like to have a larger role in that, we'd be happy to come back with a more detailed presentation and kind of guide that conversation with you. Yep, I'm going to the next slide.
Okay. Oh, one more. How to get involved, yeah.
Yeah, so again, more resources on how you can get involved. And then at the end of this slide, we're gonna have all of the team members' contact information. You can email any one of us with questions, comments, and again, to request another presentation. And if you're part of another organization that would like to have us come out, we'd be happy to do that as well. I don't remember which slide it is, so yeah,
And so, transit-related codes assessment was included as part of the larger last cap, as Michelle said. And so I'll be presenting just on that topic. This was finalized in December. I'd be happy to share the full report. It was not in your packet. It's not available online yet. And I'd be happy to send that to you following the meeting, so please let me know. So the last cap code diagnostic report showed that improving transit access in Flagstaff is central to achieving housing and carbon neutrality goals. The transit assessment specifies key outcomes and considerations that I'm going to discuss. This is the first public review of these transit considerations, so I would greatly appreciate any feedback that anybody has to refine this message, how we share this information, etc. So after Mountain Line, Michelle and I will be co-presenting to the Metro Plan TAC and board, specifically the transit component in addition to the general. And the Transportation Commission, and then we'll be part of that town hall that you mentioned as well. So that's kind of our level of review, just in this first phase. So really just identifying those transit considerations. And then as Michelle said, we use the public feedback to really draft those codes and integrated that into the city code with their concurrent processes in phase 2. And then all these code updates will go through the public review and approval process in lockstep with our city partners. So it's just really an ideal time to be doing this. And please interrupt me if you have questions. I only have 3 more slides, but there's a lot of information on every slide. So I'm going to kind of summarize these. I'll let you read them. But just to summarize the first 2 bullets, direct pedestrian and bicycle access from main corridors where transit operates to destinations is ideal. And that's where we're trying to codify here. We don't want to make people walk through long parking lots. Long and dangerous parking lots. We want to avoid cul-de-sacs and circuitous neighborhood road networks that increase the distance to access transit operating on those main corridors. Again, we're on the main corridors. We don't want to go in and just wind around neighborhoods. It's not efficient. Nobody wants to ride transit that way. The next 2 bullets, that's really just talking about the higher density housing and access to transit both contribute to overall affordability for households and Flagstaff. And corridor-based density where transit operates today makes transit the easy choice for Flagstaff citizens. So again, that's what those 2nd and 3rd bullets really summarize. And then the last 2 bullets here, the sooner transit can be included in the conversation, the more impact we can have towards achieving Flagstaff and housing sustainability goals. So just trying to be in the conversation early and considering transit and how we integrate the transit infrastructure service to these places so we best achieve the goals. And integrating transit with codes means more predictability for developers on transit expectations and costs. We don't want to negotiate from the dais. I think that's really what we've been forced to in the past when we want to integrate in with new developments. So really, again, just going to the beginning and trying to get it started from the beginning, best practice, integrating transit into these areas. So this next one, main header, sustainable transportation networks and neighborhoods. Again, just summarizing the first bullet, we just want to get it right from the start. So transit is the easy choice. Bullet 2 and 3. So the traffic impact analysis process. So this is when a new development comes in. They are analyzed on the traffic impacts, the road impacts, all of these things, and then a fee is assessed, and that analysis allows the fee to be assessed to allow new developments to improve the roadways that they're impacting. So currently transit is not a part of that process that the city undergoes and developers undergo coordinating together rather. And so we are asking for transit to be a part of that process. Again, increasing predictability for developers and having all costs and impacts being analyzed in phase 2 of the last cap. So we understand what we're asking for has cost impacts, and we are going to be analyzing those, identifying those, and helping to refine what goes into the code as a result. Incentivizing purchase of bulk transit passes. So in our last Never Rider survey, 13.5% of people say they would ride if they had a free pass alone. So it's just, again, one tool in the toolbox to make transit the easy choice. And the last bullet, private funding of transit operations. Mountain Line is always open to partnerships. Mountain Express is a great example of a partnership that we have done. I don't know if we could do it if we didn't have that partnership. It's very costly to be operating up to the snowball. So we have limited amount of funds. How do we spend that in the best way for the most amount of people? And the last item is electric mobility.
And this is simply asking for more predictability in Mountain Line's process towards zero emission. We are getting buses, we're gonna have on route charging. We just wanna understand the process and kind of have that codified with the city. And that's all I have. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Busy and Michelle?
Hi, this is Gail online. I have a question, Busy. I'm curious to when you mentioned the cost impact. This is obviously going to increase the cost of doing business in Flagstaff. So when are we going to get the data points that show how transit being incorporated into this process could potentially increase the cost of doing business? That's my first question. And then the second question is, how do we separate that from from the Prop 488 funds? Does that make sense? Because we voted for that. Like, how does that integrate? And when are we going to see those numbers?
Great. So starting with the first question, when do we see those numbers? So I understand, I mean, public involvement is really this summer. And I would say after that, I don't know if you have a more refined timeline.
We don't really have, Gail, we don't really have a more refined timeline. Thanks for the question. It's kind of the overall consideration, especially as not just transit considerations are being put in, but also as the building code is being considered. The eye on this is a balance of things that we bring on, so that bring us to our goals of housing production as well as carbon neutrality, but also keeping the affordability piece in mind. So what benefits can we offer? So we really kind of look at this as a give and a take, that as we bring things on, we have to look at other areas where maybe we have to give. And so right now, we're still in that community conversation part of this before we can start to bring in the cost analysis, but cost analysis will come as we refine the code recommendations.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Prop 480. I'm not even gonna try to. Yeah, so maybe I'll start and then Heather, please jump in, Jackie. So I would say Prop 488 absolutely assesses our current conditions in Flagstaff, and we have planned for that. Current conditions are constantly changing. When the Lone Tree Overpass actually comes about, Mountain Line's gonna be on that. Well, we need to plan for that. So there's a lot of things that are not current conditions that we have not considered in that plan. And so I would say for this last cap, the transit assessment component, I think is really just trying to be a part of the city process so it is transparent. What are our expectations for current conditions? So codify that. And then through community conversation, how do we best serve the community that continues to grow? The regional plan identifies some density in a lot of different areas. How does transit serve that? The last cap and some of those code recommendations could really help us. So I'll start there.
Yeah. If I could jump in and just add, I think one of the things, Gail, we anticipated in Prop 488 was that we wanted to include funding that allows us to be responsive as businesses relocate, as large developments go into place. I think these are complementary to each other and not exactly one or the other. It's both measures that are really needed to ensure the community is responsive with transit in the same way that they are responsive with roads, sidewalks, bike lanes, etc. So they're a handshake. But the Prop 488 is also going to help us when it's not about someone building new, where there's really the opportunity for code to help fund transit potentially in code changes, but it's going to help us just as the community grows within itself where code doesn't become part of the conversation. I hope what I said made sense. I'm going to be happy to expand upon it if needed.
And Cam, when you were saying that, I realized I actually forgot to say a major point. Part of my understanding of the TIA, or I'm sorry, the transit being considered as part of the transit transportation impact analysis could have a benefit to the TIA, and that it's actually considering that you're providing those transit services that could have a reduction in those costs that then single vehicle costs that create more for the developer to have to do from like an intersection improvement or improvement. So I thank you. As you said that, I was like, actually, a lot of this could have hopefully could have a cost reduction because we're actually considering a different mode of transportation, which we don't consider now.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Other members, any questions or comments? Hearing none, Vicky, Michelle, thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next one is the first mile, last mile partnership project in Ann.
Ann, are you there? Maybe she's muted. Ann, are you muted?
It says she left the chat.
Okay.
She shows up online, but she's muted.
I'm sorry, she's joining because she's at another meeting and she had stepped out for this. If we could, I could do current events and come back when she's able to join.
That'd be great. All right, so we will table that till Ann's available, and then we'll move to progress reports. The first progress report does not have a presentation. But if you have any questions or comments, we could bring it back as an agenda item at a later meeting. So do you have any questions or comments on one? Do we need to bring that back? Hearing none, we'll go to the next progress report.
And Ann jumped in there, just so folks know she's there.
Thank you.
You want to go ahead and do the.
Yeah, I'll just do
Yeah,
this and then we'll
so
come
she'll
back.
do the, Heather will do the summary of current events, and then we'll come back and have Ann's presentation.
Well, thank you, Chair Stahl. I have a couple of announcements and then a couple of slides to share with you. One, I wanted to make sure everyone is aware that this week at City Council, the City Council did approve an amendment to the IGA that we have with them for the land under the DCC development. It was amended to return some of the leased space back to the city so that they can dedicate that land for both necessary city and ADOT right of ways. This did not interrupt our project at all, and it's well within the project scope, but wanted to make sure you and later the board are aware that we did have the opportunity to cooperatively agree on that amendment. As mentioned in Josh's budget, and hopefully you noted in an email I sent late last month, we were put in a position of making decisions about replacement vehicles based on some federal priority changes and age of some of our funding. So we are, I don't even want to say pausing in our zero emission bus transition, but we are going to move forward with ordering 4 hybrid electric diesel vehicles instead of battery electric vehicles. That is the oldest award referenced in my email message. It is the funds that lapse in September, and the goal is to ensure that we secure those funds without delay, replace those vehicles so we maintain our state of good repair. There is a mention of 2 additional vehicles after a conversation with City of Flagstaff staff, and based on things that changed after the board meeting in March, we are going to hold off on making a firm decision on hybrid over battery electric for those other 2 vehicles, and let the current grant cycle, which ends September 30, settle, and then we will move forward with FTA on whether to go ahead with hybrids or battery electrics for those additional 2 vehicles. Also included in that message was some information about our annual audit process. And I wanted to let you all know, and I'll be confirming for the board, we actually have been working with the Federal Transit Administration on an extension so that we don't violate the reporting deadline, but actually have a documented approved extension for submission of our annual audit. We appreciate a partner at another transit agency that said, did you know you can ask for this? Because we internally were not aware of that. And then we continue to work on what is the corrective action so that we're not in this position again. And then the last thing I'll mention before going into a couple of slides is Josh spilled the beans a bit. We did apply for Arizona's SMART funds, which is money that they have set aside annually to go to rural transportation projects. As you may recall, we worked closely with Metro Plan and our legislative liaison and state legislators to amend that language to ensure transit could be an applicant. We learned in early February that there was an opportunity with redistribution of funds for us as a small entity in a community the size of Flagstaff to apply for those funds. And we learned earlier this month that we are to be March, that we are to be a recipient of those funds totaling just over $2 million. That is $2 million that we had in our financial plan for local funding, which puts that local funds right back into our fund balance here in Flagstaff for the provision of other services and other capital projects. So that's really great news, and thanks to the team who worked hard, specifically Busy, to get that application written, I think with about 48 hours notice, roughly. All right, so that's just a couple of announcements, and then I have a few slides to share with you. Busy has been pushing out to our website our ridership information. If you don't know where it's at and you'd like to know, I'm happy to share that link with you. We do publish this on a monthly basis. It also goes out in the Mountain Line Minute that Jackie sends out. I hope I'm naming the document correctly. Mountain Line Minute that we send out on a somewhat quarterly basis of just different things. I wanted to share with you, if you look at the graph, you can see ridership continues to grow since December. We always have that lull, that high peak in October with a little bit of lull over the winter months, but the average month over month has been 15%. Month over month being month of this year over the same month of last year. We're now projected to reach 1.8 million riders this year, and that's 13% higher than last year's ridership total. Jackie and I did go to DC in early March. We walked a lot of steps. We visited a lot of offices. We actually met with Department of Transportation, the Federal Transit Administration, both Senators Kelly and Gallegos, as well as Representative Crane. The key topics for our visit were project updates. So we like to go back and thank them for the money that they have supported and show them that we're delivering on those projects. We also reviewed the economic impact of transit. Mountain Line incorporated this into our report several years ago. I think we're going to see it as being a priority of how we demonstrate return on investment of federal funds. And so we're happy that we have that opportunity available to us. And then we have started the conversation about reauthorization with our elected officials. The IIJA that funds transit does expire in 2026. And so we're trying to get on that page with them now about reauthorizing those funds and other legislative changes. In March, we celebrated Transit Employee Appreciation. It was celebrated from the dates of March 16th through 18th. We actually did a celebration for our team on the 18th, but wanted to share Transit, which is our trip planning tool for our riders. They actually put out to all of their customers this Rate My Ride prompt, and it encouraged riders to share or send kind words in honor of Transit Employee Appreciation Day. And the results were that we received over 40 comments of appreciation from some of our riders. And to be fair, if you're a regular rider and you go from point A to point B twice a day, every day, you probably are not using the application to aid your trip planning. But we're always glad when we get these kinds of things. We've shared these with our drivers, and I appreciate Jackie really making that effort to tell our drivers the public does appreciate them. National Transit National Transit Database is a collection of data that we're required to submit annually to the Federal Transit Administration. It's one of the many terms that we have for receipt of federal funds. They use the data to calculate performance. This is how we get our stick money, is through the National Transit Database. We use it to give you the peer comparisons that Busy shares in our regular reports. And I just want to congratulate Busy and our team. It's not a light lift to submit this report. Busy's leadership has kept us on track, and she's actually introduced a mechanism to help us look at it more regularly. While submitting the data straightforward, the analytics of FTA creates a lot of back and forth after submission. Kid you not, some of it is, why did your vehicles travel slower this year than they did last year? Those are some of the fun comments that we get to address and deal with. We were notified last night that our report has finally been accepted and closed. So congratulations to Busy and the team. Our team participates in a internally built mechanism called TripQuest. Busy and Ty, who's no longer with us, really spent time developing this tool with others. We introduced it roughly May of 2024, and our goal is to get our staff out on the vehicles and using our own eyes, our own ears to act like customers, to see what our customers see, to hear what our customers hear, and really address challenges with our system or a challenge that a customer may experience. So staff have ridden since we introduced this 176 times. We just got the March report. So we have 25 trips in March, 7 different routes were used with 10 different stops. It will tell you the 2 number 1 used stops in this trip evaluation is the 2 in front of our building, because so many of us do go out and use Route 2 to come to meetings and other commitments in the downtown area. So those are the 2 most widely used stops. We do require all of our leadership team to ride the bus and use this tool at least once quarterly, but all staff are encouraged to use the bus instead of their personal cars or mountain lane vehicles for going to meetings around town. And then, as usual, a few DCC photos for you. So these came from our contractors over the last couple of weeks. You can see in the upper left, we've got some polished concrete visible for the first time. On the bottom center, not the snowy picture, although that was really cool. That is one of our solar tubes that is bringing sunlight into the building. I think there were 6 of them in this corridor that are bringing sunlight in. Those actually just went in, I think, late last week or early this week. On the far right-hand side bottom, this is the employee break room area. No, I'm sorry, those are the office supply cabinets. The break room or office?
Absolutely.
I think that's office supplies. I apologize. I meant to drop the break room, but I think that's the office supply. The top right-hand side, those are the main entry doors. The art class will be above those. So I just wanted to share some fun pictures that are most recent developments, and the snowy picture was just fun. And there is a picture they sent us 2 weeks ago in the snowstorm. I thought it was pretty cool. And then I wanted to share, we're starting to see some of the art that's going to be implemented. These are the projects that we partnered with City of Flagstaff to implement. On the top left, that is 1 layer of the art glass. You can see the lion's eye in that photo. I wish I had more to share with you. That was the only one that I have at this time. The other pictures are all of the tree circle sculpture. Anne keeps calling it something else, and I'm sorry, I'm not coming up with the right word. But on the left-hand side, you can see the actual tree put together. In the middle, those are the pine needle sculptures that will be placed all over that tree. And the bottom right is the bark that was created and then is wrapped around that tree pole that's on the left. I just thought those were some pretty cool images of this artwork that we'll see installed soon. And of course, the very top picture is the middle piece of this, and I have a zoom for you of that. So those tree rings tell the history of Flagstaff. And I just think it's the coolest feature and wanted to share it with you. This tree sculpture is going to be located just outside of our doorway now. Long-term, it will be moved to the civic space for the community's entire benefit. But wanted to share, we're pretty excited to see that come together. Wrapping up here, we have a couple of new staff. Wanted to share new staff and new positions. We have 3 new drivers that just moved from training into our driving pool, and we brought 3 more new trainees on. So we're very excited about that. And then we have some promotions to celebrate, most specifically James, who's here running our IT stuff today, has been promoted from technician to specialist, and we're glad to celebrate these staff. On the left is Phil Parrish, who moved from operator to transportation supervisor. And in the middle is Don Palmer, who moved from supervisor to superintendent. And lastly is our anniversaries for this month. And so we have 3 that we're sharing. Ken Lasinski on the left joined us as an operator. He spent some time as one of our trainers. He's been a transportation supervisor for the last couple of years, very focused on our driver scheduling. We're happy to celebrate 11 years with him. In the middle is Jeff Beal, who joined us 2 years ago as a transit operator. He did join us without his CDL, and he is actually one of our, he does do paratransit driving as well, and is well received in that area because he's so good with customer service. And on the far right is Jordan Goodwin, who serves as our mechanic, he says maintenance assistants, I've always called him a mechanics assistant. He's celebrating his second year here with us, and we're very glad to have him. And with that, those are all of the current events that I have, and I know we need to go back to Ann, but if you don't mind, I will ask if there's any questions on anything that I shared.
Are there any questions for Heather?
Let me back in. Sure. You don't mind.
Right,
Guys.
Hearing none, we will move back to item 4, and Ann's gonna present first mile, last mile partnership project.
Thank you, Chair Steele and Dunno, Capital Development Manager. Thank you for your patience. I was exiting a meeting and it's quiet now. This is just an update. There is we're not seeking any board action. This is really an update on the first mile, last mile project with the city. Next slide, please, Rhonda. A little bit of background about the first mile, last mile project, the grant project. This is a federally funded project with FTA, and eligible projects in order to qualify for this funding need to be proximate to transit within a quarter mile for sidewalks and 3 miles for bike facilities. And in this particular program, they're really mainly looking at bike lanes. This project also can include at-grade crossings. And the other key component that when we outlined the framework of this implementation of this project was to look at projects that can be completed within the existing right-of-way. And the goal here was really just to streamline our environmental documentation. Once you start getting out of right-of-way with right-of-way acquisition, that gets much more complicated. And so we really, there's plenty of projects that we could look at as I will kind of explain, that meet this eligibility. Next slide, please, Rhonda. The funding itself was awarded, I believe, in 2022. It had one design grant, total project value of 1.2 million, of which a component is for pedestrian design and a component is for bike design. And then there was several grants for construction, about 5.6 million, 3.9 million for sidewalk pedestrian connections, and 1.7 for bike construction. And kind of a nuance to this is that when we did obligate these funds, so these are obligated funds, and when we did that, we had to put the funds into buckets. So we've had to, as we've developed the programming of projects, we've had to really kind of guide where, the projects fall and how they can be designed and funded for construction. Next slide, please. A little bit of background on the project selection. As I indicated, there are a lot of needs in the community for bike and ped connections. That we partnered with the city under an IGA, and the city is actually managing the project. So we're working very closely with City Capital. There's an identified project manager that does day-to-day project management. And then the project, Mountain Line really is the project sponsor, bringing in the funds on the federal side, but the city is providing the local match. We worked with the multimodal planning manager to really outline projects in town that meet the criteria of being in the right-of-way that, had been prioritized. And there were dozens of projects that fell into this category. So we had to work hard to develop with the design team kind of a process. So we did this, Mountain Line owns the procurement for this. So the design team developed sort of like the big list, and then through feasibility and kind of the phasing of task orders, we narrowed it down along with the pre-construction with the CMAR, which Mountain Line does hold the procurement for that, working on the budgets and kind of working towards what can we fit within the construction budgets for bike and pedestrian. And really the city kind of did that process, reviewing feasibility priorities with Mountain Line's feedback in terms of the relationship to transit, and identified a couple of key projects for sidewalks and a bike lane package. So if you go to the next slide, Rhonda. the city has actually identified the Huntington Fanning Sidewalk project for the primary project for 2025. It is just south of the tracks on the east side, and it serves a need in this area with social services. There's the food bank and the shelter, Flagstaff Shelter Services over there, and there's a lot of movement in that corridor, really from the Fanning bus stops across the tracks to get to that area. And so really this project would really support that effort to help people get to this area safely. And it is about a $2.5 million project. The GMP, the contractor's guaranteed maximum price is still in the works, but the goal is to get this under contract and constructed in 2025. There's a small section that's missing kind of in that corner between where the road bends on Fanning over by Huntington. That area will be completed under a separate project with the city because it did need some right of way in that area. So we could not include that as part of this project. The city is also working on like I said, a bike lane package. They're aiming to get that out at the package this year. It's unclear. The city is going to determine if they're going to be able to build that in this construction season or carry it to the next construction season. And with the remaining funds, this project, there will still be some sidewalk funds available. The city capital group is working to prioritize from that list that's already been brought up to design which 1 or 2 smaller projects can be completed. But one of the benefits too, and if we can't obviously construct every project on the list, is that the city was able to get, up to at least 60% design on some areas in town for crossings. That's going to help them potentially bring other funds to those projects to get them completed. And so I think that's really more in the city capital area to kind of look forward to in the future. So with that, I welcome any questions or feedback.
Thank you, Ann. Questions, comments, Fran? Hearing, so thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
With that, we are down to our next meeting. Our next meeting is a joint meeting with the board. It's May 21st. It will be at the Aquaplex, and it's an in-person meeting, so it will not be Zoom. Yeah, so it will not be Zoom. It will be in-person meeting at the Aquaplex, starting at 10 a.m. Any questions or comments? Recap of the meeting today. Hearing none, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.